Right outside, please. Thank you. My name is Michael DeBar, and the question that I've been asked is, what is my favorite instrument? And the answer is you. First time I heard the blues, I was in boarding school in England, because that's where I'm from, I'm English. So all these boys all living together, no girls of any kind, just boys in uniforms playing cricket. Horrible experience. But one guy, my dear friend Pete Thompson, who I know, from all those years ago, 16th century I'm talking about, he introduced me to the blues, Sonny Boy Williamson, John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, and that was the inspiration for me to really start to feel what music was, rather than the commercial pop music that was being played. I was introduced very early in this isolated community to listen to the music of the oppressed African American musicians, and in some crazy symbiosis, young English guys and girls adopted it as the soundtrack to their lives, which was very, very interesting when you think about it. The working class England, primarily, which is where most rock stars come from, the working class of England, suddenly had this fascination with, the blues. So you had this ridiculous hybrid of the repressed British society wanting to liberate itself with the glorious passion and soulfulness of rhythm and blues. My musical influences are not necessarily musical. For instance, Oscar Wilde was a tremendous influence on me in terms of wit and brilliance. Lord Byron, he was the first rock and roll star. I mean, some people say Jesus, but I'm not going to touch that. So therefore rock and roll is not necessarily a musical influence. It is an attitude and an energy and a passion and a certain desire to smash convention and change things and express oneself in a very carnal way, even though, prior to the advent of Bob Dylan, who of course then gave it an intellectual analysis and political meaning, that could potentially change the world. But I believe that blues music changed the world in a sense because it was so raw and it reached the people. I mean, all revolutionary change it comes from a desire that you've had enough. And rock and roll is so spontaneous and so chaotic and can be so fun at the same time that my influences were a myriad of influences. Lenny Bruce was a tremendous influence on me. Muddy Waters was a tremendous influence on me. It's almost as if, Lord Byron played guitar. The way to be, I think, authentic in whatever you do is to be authentic in whatever you do. And that means your relationship with your loved ones, your relationship with your the ones that perhaps are not lovable. So authenticity is not just simply the artist's truth. It's all of our truths. Everybody's an artist. Everybody's a star. Andy was right. Look at Snooki. But, or don't. So I believe that to get to your real true expression of honest music, acting, painting, sculpture is to know yourself. If you know who you are and it's egoless and there's humility there, along with confidence, and joy, is what I've learned over these years. In the beginning, in 1972, when I first came to America and married Miss Pamela, the Queen of the Groupies, and had a band called Silverhead, which is just a very young, chaotic band, but it was authentic for one reason. We didn't know how to be inauthentic. There was nothing to compare it to. Because in those days, it was the precedent-setting days of rock and roll, the late 60s, Zeppelin, Hendrix, Doors, etc. That's never going to happen again. It's not a bad thing it's never going to happen again. It's just simply never going to happen again. And it was authentic by nature, because that was the beginning, the precedent-setting standard templates for rock and roll. And everything after that has been somewhat plagiaristic, which is fine, since those guys also, plagiarized from the great blues musicians, But, so, to answer your question, authenticity comes from a self-awareness with a hint of self-obsession. If you look at the great works of painters, Picasso, etc., etc., but if you really look at their long careers, the ones that had long careers is probably the wrong word, but a long artistic life, you'll find that at the beginning they were very simple. Then it becomes more complex with the technical knowledge. And then when they're older, they're doing Matisse. So a nude is 3 paintbrush squirrels, and you can see everything. So I think, because I've been at it a long time, I think that that's the same for me, and why wouldn't it be? In the beginning it was very simple. I played simple chords, sang simple songs, but because they were, I didn't compare them to anybody else's work. They had a truth to them, and I think the longer you do it, the less you feel the need to overdo it. The main change in when I arrived in LA in 1972 to still being here in 2011 is cocaine. I came here, weighed 120 pounds, and was addicted to every drug you could possibly imagine and every sexual experience you could possibly have, and proud of it. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad today. No, we're all drug addicted. It was before cocaine was obviously drove you to psychosis. We didn't know that yet. We thought it was still fun, and it was. But so to answer your question, that's the glib response. The truthful response is that the less artifice in my life, the less substances I need to feel good, the better. The biggest drug I'm on right now is me, and I think that, but that is also compromised by the fear. The fear of losing whatever you've sustained, I mean, that's what driven people mad since the time began. You get an artist, you get, Greta Garbo in the 20s, silent movie star, fled Hollywood. Biggest star in the world, fled. Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix. You reach a peak of such power and potency, and then it's unbearable. And I think that there's always that dichotomy. What I believe in is balance, and a great wardrobe. I started to write, and the words that I was writing were coming from a very real and sincere place, because I'd sustained a real physical injury in my wrist. I'd broken it several times, and I was down for the count for a year. I couldn't, so I read a lot and I wrote a lot. I wrote these things and I posted them on a social network site, and it got a tremendous response, and that encouraged me a great deal just when I needed it. I was just so worn out from dealing with this injury, so I wrote this stuff, and I went down to Austin, Texas, the most miraculous, beautiful place for any musician, since those people down there are in a different band every night. They play for one reason, and it isn't Kim Kardashian's ass, it's to play music. It's not to get a reality show, it's to play music. So I got the integrity back, and the authenticity of these people. So I put those words to blues music. Then I came back to LA, put a band together, and here we are. Well, I'm playing guitar for the first time, which is very different. And the guys around me mean more to me now, because I'm playing this and I'm looking at them, I'm watching what they're playing, I'm playing with them rather than just vocalizing with them. So, and they're incredible. They really have been so supportive. And that's what's given me the kick and the interest in wanting to go back. I'm 63 years old and I'm forming a band. I mean, I remember being 14 singing into a hairdryer, and now I'm doing it again, and that's I can't tell you how joyous I feel about being able to do that, since a lot of my contemporaries have kicked the bucket. I mean, a lot of the people that I was in bands with, God bless them, are now 6 feet under, because they continued the path of rock and roll excess, and it led to their demise. So I consider myself, the luckiest man in the world, A, to be breathing, and to have 3% body fat, and a good haircut.
How do you explore rock and roll without the excess, though? How does it change?
Angel, how do you explore rock and roll without excess? Excess is tattooed on my ass. So it doesn't really matter whether it's how you would define excess. I mean, my whole personality is excessive, as you can probably tell from what I'm saying here today. I believe in every second is important, because as I say, I've seen a lot of people fall by the wayside. And I'm not interested in the wayside. I'm interested in back alleys and boulevards. And I will do my damnedest to enjoy every fucking second I'm on this planet.